After inheriting $150 million at the age of 5, Isabel Anderson built one of the most unique mansions at the turn of the 20th century. Hi everyone, Ken here. Today we're finding out what happens when you blend Japanese design with Edwardian opulence. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. In 1876, Isabel Weld Perkins was born into a well-established, old-money American family who had originally ventured to the New World in one of the first colonies. Throughout the centuries, the Perkins on her father's side had made a name for themselves, with her grandfather serving as a judge and wealthy mill owner, to her father who was the commander of the USS Cayuga through the Civil War. However, her grandfather on her mother's side, William Fletcher Weld, proved to be the most influential in shaping Isabel's life. William Fletcher Weld became a baron of industry, from building railroads to amassing an impressive real estate portfolio. When he passed away in 1881, he left 5-year-old Isabel $5 million cash, along with real estate, stocks, and bonds. And while we might never know the true value of her inheritance, the cash alone was worth the modern-day equivalent of over $150 million. This inheritance immediately propelled her into the uppermost echelons of society, becoming one of the richest children in the United States. As a child, she would spend time at her parents' house in Boston's Back Bay, but she also had the freedom to summer in Newport at her grandfather's former estate. Unlike many young heiresses and socialites, she followed her passion for writing. As she grew into her teens, her love for writing blossomed to include a taste for adventure. She began traveling the world and documenting her experiences with other cultures in travelogues. On one such trip, while visiting Rome, she met a young diplomat by the name of Lars Anderson. The two immediately fell in love, sparking a romance that culminated in their marriage just 2 years later in 1897. Their union was a blend of affluence, public service, and relentless exploration. The Andersons traveled the world together, embarking on 4 circumnavigations and numerous trips through Europe and Asia. For a brief period, Lars became the US ambassador to Japan, and the couple were able to live fully immersed in Japanese culture. Returning stateside in her 20s, Isabel was ready to settle down and return to society. Around this time, Lars's career as a diplomat was flourishing, so Isabel paid for a palatial mansion to be built for them in Washington, D.C., which would be named the Lars Anderson House. We covered this mansion previously, so I'll have that video linked at the end of this one if you would like to see its decadent interior. Before their DC house was completed, Isabel purchased a family estate from one of her cousins in Brookline, Massachusetts, with views of the rapidly expanding Boston skyline. Once she had finished acquiring land for the estate, which she named Weld in honor of her grandfather, the grounds consisted of 64 acres. While the original house was being extensively remodeled, the grounds were being meticulously shaped. All around the house, garden paths stretched away, dotted by sculptures and outbuildings. Perfectly manicured lawns were contained by fruiting trees and framed by hedges. At the eastern end of the garden, a large fountain marked the entrance to the pergola supported by Tuscan columns. From here we can step down to the sunken garden, once again introducing elements of classical architecture, almost reminiscent of Isabel's favorite sites around the world. Off in the distance, the stables were modeled after a 17th century English castle which she had ancestral ties to. As you cleared one lawn and traveled through a canopy of trees, the theme of each garden was meant to transport you to a different place altogether. On the water we find the Temple of Love, just one of many grand follies about the grounds. But perhaps the most impressive of the follies was this one, overgrown with ivy and open to the air. We can imagine birds and butterflies fluttering about, a tranquil escape just moments away from the bustling city of Boston. Now that we've seen the extensive grounds, let's make our way back up the hill to explore the Andersons' country mansion. The original house all but disappeared, losing its shingle facade and being nearly doubled in size. We'll start our tour from the stair hall, finished out in rich wood from floor to ceiling and broken up by wallpapered sections. To one side is the cozy ingle nook, a welcome feature during Boston's snowy winters. If visiting as a guest, we would be ushered into the newly remodeled reception room, where we might notice a handful of decor items Isabel brought back with her from Japan. This subtle nod to Japanese motifs proves to be an introduction to an overall theme as we continue into the ballroom. Here we find traditional Japanese art and furniture paired with Edwardian opulence, and sitting proudly in the center of the room is one of the many bonsai trees that we will see throughout the house. While some rooms blended the two cultures, others were furnished almost exclusively by imported pieces. Though not every room could be so dramatic. The hall was modeled more on English design, but if you look closely, you'll find a few trinkets here and there that will tie you into the rest of the house. The music room continues with these more classically inspired themes, including fluted columns and an ecclesiastical ceiling mural. As we continue through the house, we'll find rooms that almost look like compromises between Isabel's and Lars's tastes. The dining room is one such space, with a built-in hutch spanning the width of the room and a dining set that would work in just about any other grand American home of the era. The entire house becomes this back and forth, played out in dozens of materials and design motifs. The couple continued to enjoy it for many decades until Isabel's passing in 1948. At that time, she willed the entire estate to the town of Brookline. Unfortunately, the mansion was lost to a devastating fire. However, the carriage house and stables continue to stand as the Lars Anderson Auto Museum, and many of the garden structures can still be enjoyed in Lars Anderson Park. What did you think about Weld and how it blended Japanese design with Edwardian opulence? Did you have a favorite room or architectural feature? Let me know down below in the comments section, and while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.